Welcome to this IUN Community Garden Session, Creative Ways to Plant Vegetables. The presenter for today's session is Lynda Bodie. Lynda is Program Coordinator for Indiana Gear Up West Side Garden Club and is a Purdue Master Gardener. She has worked in gardening with children for 20 years. She has helped to install several gardens at schools around the city of Gary, along with managing the vegetable garden at Tri-Town Safety Village in Cherville. Welcome, Lynda.
Thank you. What I want to do is just give you some examples of how people are planting and what they plant in, because a lot of times we think, or some people do think, that planting in the ground is the only way to go. But there's a lot of things you can do. You can do just about anything, in fact. But can somebody tell me in the chat what is the most important thing of growing plants, growing vegetables? What is number one consideration?
Okay, we've got soil prep, sun exposure, water, fresh taste, weather.
Okay, the
good
first
drainage.
One, I'm sorry.
Oh. Good drainage.
Okay. So that first answer, ding, 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 ding. That's the correct answer, is soil, 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 soil. So as we go through these slides, just remember soil. All those other things are absolutely necessary, but you're not going to get anything unless you have good soil, healthy soil. Okay, so my first slide is a picture of the garden we have at Westside High School in Gary. This is our second growing season. The students do all the work in the garden. And so we have two different types of beds. We have a cedar wooden beds, and we use water troughs as well. So the troughs are nice, and actually beds themselves are nice because it keeps everything looking neat, and it keeps us from growing in the ground. That can be an issue, especially closer to the steel mills and all this stuff that's in the air. So that gets in the soil. So this is probably the best way to go if you're not sure about what your soil is like in your ground. So here's another look at it. This was last season when we were prepping the beds and getting things ready to plant. This is our greenhouse, and this black tub here is a dishwashing tub, and we started growing greens in there, and it did a great job. And of course, we put them out in the garden, one of the garden beds since then, but we could have probably kept them in there for quite a while. Another look. So now we're going to look at Oasis Botanic Gardens, which is also in Gary, and they grow, as it says, culinary and medicinal herbs. And I wanted to show this garden because she uses the woman who runs this is Carmen McKee, and she uses different types of containers, which I think is just gives you a good indication of what all you can do. And then it's all done on the cheap, actually. It's reused, repurposed wood and whatever out there. So you don't have to spend a ton of money, but you can have a different look. So she also has tubs there, and they were donated to her. But what she's doing here, I'm sure that you seasoned gardeners know what this is. And this is a square foot type of garden. And what she does with it is grow different types of sunflowers. And so she separates them, you know, and plant them in the different squares. And you can also do this, but you got to be careful what you put together. But you can also do this with just any vegetable, you know, grow some, you know, one different thing in a square. And so you can get quite a few, if you're not looking for volume, you can get quite a few different vegetables in there. But you got to be careful, do a little research on what grows better with what. And then you got to consider height of things, that some things are not being blocked out by the sun, or they're not blocking the sun out. So here is a bed that's a raised bed. Carmen does not fill her beds with soil, completely with soil. The bottom half, at least, is full of cardboard, maybe leaves, mulch. She even uses water bottles, things like that to build up the height, so you don't have to fill that entire thing up with soil, because you don't actually need that deep of a soil unless you're growing root vegetables. And at the bottom of this picture, she has other receptacles that she uses. And again, even this pot is not full of soil. And in these particular types of beds is probably, especially the troughs, to use potting mix, because if you use heavier stuff, the troughs you have to water more frequently than you do these wooden beds. But you know, it'll make it too, you know, too packed, the soil too packed, and so potting mix would give you that that flow of water that you need to make sure that your roots are getting some water. She has a raised bed here. She's growing garlic, because she's actually selling garlic. And apparently, she says to me that garlic pairs well with roses. Now, they actually eat rose hips. She has bees, and she has honey that she uses, rose petals in her honey. And so she has a trellis kind of situation going here, but it's a small bed. And her fencing, of course, is to keep rabbits out. I don't know if you guys are having bunny problems, but everybody is at this time of year, I guess. So here are some more raised beds that she has, that again, and you see they're kind of shallow. So she does fill these up with soil. And she has on the side of these beds, these are those shoe tree kind of things that you put in your closet. And she actually grows herbs in these. So she puts potting mix in these things. And of course, it's too soon. She doesn't have anything growing now. And she did have flowers 1 year in there, but she grows a lot of herbs in these things, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. Are there any questions yet? Anybody have a question? Am I going too fast, too slow?
Lynda, there are a couple questions.
Yes.
When you were talking about the tubs,
Yes.
are they PBA free, or does that matter?
They are supposed to be PBA free, because you do want to be concerned about that.
And how big are those tubs when you're growing vegetables and stuff? What do you recommend?
I think any size is good because you're not going to fill them up with soil. You're going to do the same thing where you're going to put, I use cardboard quite a bit. I did use, I manage right now about 3 school gardens. And so some of them I'm doing something different with just to see how it works. But cardboard works really well because it bulks up the thing and you don't have to put a lot of soil in it. But so you're not going to, unless, like I said, root vegetables, you need some space. But typically vegetable roots are not that long, and so any size would be fine. But yeah, just make sure it's food grade.
And as far as the cardboard, do you leave it in the large sheets or do you recommend shredding it down to smaller pieces?
Yeah, I don't shred it because then you're going to need more. I leave them in big in box size, I flatten them and all that sort of thing because it'll fill up your bed more and it will over time break down. So no, you don't have to shred it because it seems to me, just in my mind's eye, that you would need a lot of it if you're going to do that. But you can put mulch. Sometimes Carmen will put twigs and things like that in the bottom of hers. Some people use straw. There's a lot of things that you can use that will be compost. It will compost itself, and just to build that soil up, so you don't have to use a whole lot. But at some point, you're going to have to replace. You're going to have to put more soil in. But it also will help you enrich your soil, putting compostable materials in there. Any other questions?
So far, that's all we have in the chat.
Okay. So she also uses, and these a lot of the things that she gets are donated. So she gets these flower pots that they look heavy, but they're not. And so again, and then there's grow bags down here. Again, you're not going to put a soil completely in there, so they're not going to be as heavy as they look, and grow things quite nicely. And they look good, so you can grow in anything really. And she does use her Carmen, she does use her grow bags for root vegetables and carrots and whatever else that she puts in there. And again, she makes them, make sure she has enough soil in there, but she doesn't fill the thing completely up with soil. And let's see what we got here. So she's also growing, now she's growing this in the ground, which I was surprised about because we typically don't do that. But she's got garlic everywhere because she's actually going to sell that. So, but it's a nice little area that she has marked off that she's growing, and there's a bed behind that where she's going to grow some other things, but mostly they're beds. So this, of course, obviously is not, she doesn't have anything underneath it, but she's had her soil tested, so she knows that she can grow in it, and whatever amendment she needed to do. This is a picture of another garden that I started in probably 7 years ago, and it was really small, but we have grown over the years, and this was last year, and we had such a lush growth because we got the best soil mixture in town, and it did really well. we didn't have to do any amendments to the soil at all. It was great. That was the best year we've had in terms of lushness of our garden. And let's see what else we have here. Oh, that's it. So this is Carmen's thing that you can actually go see her. She, like I said, she's in Gary, Indiana, and her garden is mostly a teaching garden, and you can you can eat herbs and things like that there, just to try it out and see what she has. She has a lot of unusual things that she grows. So if you get a chance to visit her, that would be wonderful. And she was so gracious to let me take some pictures out there. So this is my information. I don't know if this was helpful or not. So if you can let me know what you think, any experiences you've had, other ways of creatively growing. You could do just about anything. People use pallets to get vertical gardens. They, they nail them to a side of a building and planting pallets. And I don't know if anybody's done that, if they had any success with that, because I've just heard people kind of complain that it's hard to water, it's hard to keep those kind of plants watered, and because it kind of just runs through.
Okay, there's a couple questions showing up in the chat. What is the best soil mix and where do you get it?
Okay, so there are a lot of people selling soil. You don't want topsoil, and that took me a while to learn that you definitely don't want topsoil. It's too heavy. Landscaping companies usually have a good mix of soil and compost. Your soil needs to be a good mixture of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And I think it's 2 to 1 to 1/2. So you can, there are tests you can take that you can buy these test kits and Lowe's or whatever, and it'll give you good enough indication as to what your nutrients are in your soil. But you want to have at least that. And there's other nutrients that go along with it, but those are the 3 most important. And knowing that level to make sure that you have the right mix of that. And you can also, if you have sandy soil, there you can go online and Google how to test your soil in terms of that, how much sand and whatnot is in there, because then you need to probably amend that a little bit. And so that's a simple test of putting water and soil and letting it sit, and then the levels will separate, and you can see how much you have. But it's a little more complicated than that. So, but you can find that online. Excuse me. And looking at your soil, it should look like brownie mix. It should be soft. It shouldn't be real super loose, but it shouldn't be tight. It should have that brown color. It should smell good. Yeah, so I mean, it's easy to do that, because most people really that I've been in contact with, especially when they first start growing, are more concerned about the seed, the whatever they're kind of growing, but they never think about the soil. And the soil is by far the most important. I just heard something that I don't know is true or not, but it makes sense. But soil also, now, I mean, I understand that having good soil makes your plants grow well, but I never thought about the fact that it actually puts the nutrients in your vegetable. You know, if you don't have a good soil, a mix of nutrients, then your fruit won't be as nutritious. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it, like I said, it just makes sense to me. So it's really important. Soil is by far the most important thing that you need to do in a garden, because it doesn't matter how much sun or water or whatever you have. If you don't have the nutrients that your plants need, they're not going to grow. And I've seen that myself. And because I have been at the one garden that I was saying that I work with in Hammond, just a couple of years ago, I stopped buying bags of soil from Menards and things like that, and went to a landscaping company that you know they specialize in soil, and I never saw that garden look that well ever. I mean, things grew just magnificently, and they were just beautiful. So yes, it definitely does matter. I'm sorry, there's other questions, I think.
What vegetables grow the best in Northwest Indiana?
Pretty much, I know a woman who grew in the middle of Gary, pineapple, and what else did that woman grow? So you can grow basically anything except tropical fruit, which she grew a tropical fruit. You know, we don't have that long of a season, to be sure. So things that take a long time to mature, you know, may not be good for here. But your basic vegetables that people tend to eat, tomatoes, peppers, cabbage, all of that stuff, you know, grows well in our zone. Our zone is 5B, and that's a little warm. We've changed over the years. There's a little spot right below Lake Michigan, going toward Michigan City from say Maryville, is 5C. You know, it's a little tiny spot, but it's a little warmer than the rest of our area. So it's just basically the length of time that we have, but we certainly get hot enough, as you all know. Hope that answered that question.
You mentioned earlier avoiding topsoil for growing veggies. What is the best purpose for topsoil? Grass, flowers?
Grass, because it gets compacted too much, so you don't get enough oxygen. Even I would think flowers. I'm not a big flower grower. I'm trying with my students. They want to grow. My West Side students wanted to grow flowers, a lot of flowers this year. So this is my first time doing that. But I can just imagine that you'd have the same issue, because topsoil is just so dense. And so potting soil, garden soil, all those kind of mixes are less dense and affords you that ability to aerate and get some good air to your roots.
Lynda, do you recommend using a slow release fertilizer on your vegetables?
So my attitude with fertilizers is this. Even though there's organic things out there, I work with children exclusively, not, you know, actually. And so I try not to put anything, you know, and I try to amend it with, say, fish emulsion, things like that. that you can get those to get nitrogen and all that stuff in there. But for example, soil that already has fertilizer in it and all that kind of stuff, you may not even need it. And so I'm leery of all of that stuff. So for me, I just don't feel comfortable doing that with stuff that kids are going to eat. And if it's not the prettiest looking tomato, it doesn't matter as long as it's healthy. So so I don't recommend anything. However, except for fish emulsion, I will put that in there. But other people do. They don't have any issue with it, and I'm probably being over cautious, but I don't. So I'm sorry.
We have one more question left on the chat. Do you recommend growing vegetables from seeds in little pots first? And can you grow veggies from a cut off piece of the vegetable?
It depends on the vegetable in terms of that. And basically, I would say just try. If you have a cut off piece, put it in some water, see if it'll grow roots. I know tomatoes will. They'll root all through, up their stem, and peppers. I think I've done that before as well. But what was the first part of the question?
Do you recommend using little pots to start vegetables from seed?
Starting from seed. This was the very first year at Westside High School where I have a garden there, where we started everything we put in that garden. We started from seed except marigolds, and I actually just got some marigold seeds from another garden I have, and I wish I'd have waited and did that. But everything is from seed. We when we started this garden, we also got a greenhouse, and so I was able, I don't know if you remember one of the pictures that I showed in the greenhouse, where it was a dishwashing tub that we had collards in, and underneath that there were some black jugs. We got somebody donated the jugs to us, and we painted them black. And the idea is to absorb heat in the greenhouse during the day. This was during the winter. We actually put kale out there. We grew that from seed in the classroom, and we put that out there and tried to keep it alive during the winter, and it did real well. It survived. So we started, as it started to get warm in the greenhouse, we started in the classroom, everything, all our seeds, and when it got large enough to go in the greenhouse, we put them out there. So yes, it was great. That was the first time I've ever been able to do that, and it's wonderful to see, because especially with the children, they see the whole process, and they feel accomplished because they did that themselves. But there's no harm in buying seedlings and all that sort of thing, except you gotta kind of be careful when you go out to buy things and make sure they look healthy. They seem to be growing. You try to look at roots. Roots should be white, and if they're a healthy plant, and insect free. So yeah, I would recommend it. It was really exciting to do that this time with the kids.
We have a couple more questions that popped up. Can you get your soil tested at the Purdue Extension in Crown Point?
No, but there is a kit that you can get from there and send it off. There is a place in Maryville, I believe, that will test your soil. You got to kind of do that early because it takes quite a while, but you can absolutely go down to the Purdue Extension office and pick up a kit, and it'll explain to you how to get your soil in order to have it tested, and it gives you a ton of information. So I would, if you're at all unsure, I would do that, especially if, well, particularly if you're growing in the ground. If you have raised beds and you're buying your soil from bags, from Menards and all that stuff, you don't really have to do that to find out about, like say contaminants or whatever. But, those little cheap kits can give you a good indication of your nutrients and your 3 nutrients that are more, most important. But no, they don't do testing there.
And how long can seeds be kept or stored?
So, some people say 5 years or so. You got to keep them in a cool spot and keep them dry. I don't know if you know the trick of testing to see if your seeds, if you've had them for a couple of years but you've stored them well or whatever, that you can do a quick test, and you can put them in a cup of water. The seeds that float are viable, and seeds that fall to the bottom of a cup, say, are not. And you can, maybe put 10 seeds in there and get a percentage of what you think would, it'll let you know more or less the percentage of seeds that are viable in your packet. I've done that before, and that worked. And I've actually put seeds that were allegedly not viable in there, and they grew. So, but it gives you a good indication as to what your seeds are like. But you have to store them well. And if they get too hot, they won't germinate. If you keep them somewhere where it gets hot, it won't germinate. So in a cool place and dry place. And even if you reuse your seeds, say you have tomatoes that you liked, that you want to collect the seeds, peppers, all those sorts of things. You of course you dry them out, keep them in a cool space, and you can use them the next year.
Hi, Linda. One of the participants wants to grow in one of the tubs, and she'd like to know if there's a particular plant that is easy to grow so that she doesn't get frustrated.
So greens are easy. The only problem with greens is that they attract it's a brassica, and all these brassicas are eaten up by cabbage moths, and that's the bane of my existence. But greens are very easy. Tomatoes aren't that hard. Peppers are great. See, radishes, you can't go wrong with those. Oh, yeah. I mean, the typical things. Cucumbers are easy. Beans are ridiculously easy, and they grow quick. Green beans, sugar snaps, where the grocery stores are charging $4 a pound for those things, and you can get a $2 seed packet and grow all the sugar snaps you want. Beans in general grow quickly. Lettuce is almost going to be too hot for lettuce coming up soon, but you could probably still get it in. It only takes maybe 30 days. And you don't have to, baby them that much. What else? Cabbage. I think I said that already. Bok choy. Bok choy grows really, and it's beautiful when it grows. Swiss chard, there's that rainbow color thing, and I grow those just for ornamental purposes because they are beautiful, and they have big leaves, and the stems are they could be yellow, green, red, and the you know, the leaves come in different colors as well. What else? Whatever you like to eat, I would say try to grow it unless it's real exotic. And then you can try that after you have a couple of years of success. But I say don't give up, you know, no matter what, you know, keep trying. Because the thing is that when the zombie apocalypse comes, you will know how to grow your own food. But no, please don't give up. And trial and error. There's a guy, what's his name? Joe Lample. He has a gardening show on PBS, and he takes copious notes of what he does each year, so he knows what not to do, what to do. You know, you could even do that, you know, to keep track of what went wrong, what went well. There's new products, like I say, that's coming on the market every time you turn around, and maybe you could try some of it and see if it works for you. But yeah, it's worth it, I'm telling you.
What is the best time in the spring to start your seeds? So if you're a gardener who maybe lost the opportunity this season and you have to go with seedlings, say from a nursery, and they want to try doing seeds next season, what are your recommendations?
So what takes the longest for me are tomatoes and peppers. So I start those as early as February, to be honest. And some people don't start till March or whatever, but it takes a while for them to grow. I would say, and that would be indoors, and I would say something like watermelon too, maybe. The rule of thumb around here in our zone is zone 5B, excuse me, is Mother's Day is now if you go online and you look for first and last frost date for zone 5B, it might not be exactly the date of Mother's Day, but most growers and farmers go by that date. So like last Sunday, was it? Or the Sunday before, is when a lot of people start planting from seed in the garden. So some things can grow quickly from seed in the garden, but these long haulers, you know, that takes 120 days and things like that to harvest. I start in February, so that might be a little too soon for some people, but that's when I do it now. And now that I have the greenhouse, we actually started in January. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Okay, yes, there's one last question. You were talking about bok choy. Does it tolerate hot weather?
Yes, I grew it. I actually forgot that I had it, and I had some seedlings that I had in another greenhouse, and the label came off. I didn't know what it was, so I just put it in the garden, and we harvested that like in August maybe. So it went through most of the summer, and it was huge and delicious. I love bok choy. I don't actually even use it like for Asian cooking. I cook it like I would cabbage, any cabbage, and it's just delicious. But yeah, it made it through, and it was great. And you know, our summers are just ridiculously hot anymore, so it made it through all that heat and drought. And that's another thing to concern yourself with is making sure that you get enough water. You don't want to water too much, because you don't want your plants to be really dependent on you watering them every day and all that kind of thing. You know, give them, you know, let them get a little drought resistant. But yeah, that can be a problem.
Okay, that is it for our questions in the chat. Lynda, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge on gardening.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everybody who attended, and thank you for your feedback. That made me feel much better, because I felt like I was on an island. And so thank you so much.